Welcome to First. I'm Shirley Min along with Mark Eichman and Nichelle Polston. If the history of the Hotel du Pont is a symbol for the history of Wilmington, then big changes are in store for Delaware's largest city. We'll take you on a tour of what's new.
The change in Wilmington comes from the people who contribute to its growth. So for Women's History, we profiled two different types of artists who are leaving a lasting legacy and the types of art they contribute.
And the lasting legacy left for young girls can be seen in how well they can compete in the years to come. Most of that competition will be in the area of technology. It'll be in Middletown for a meeting of the Girls Who Code Club. First, your public media news magazine starts now.
Wilmington has a rich history, but it's also seen its share of hard times. Many indicators point to another cycle of change, and from the looks of construction in the downtown area, those changes are popping up on every corner of Market Street in downtown Wilmington. Most notably are changes within the DuPont building, including to the historic Hotel du Pont. We take you on a tour downtown in this week's First Look. The lavish Hotel du Pont put Wilmington on the map when it opened in 1913 and has remained a landmark of luxury ever since. So when new owners, the Buccini-Poland Group, decided to make $400,000 worth of changes, Dave Poland says they did so carefully.
I knew that was our first order of business here, is to make sure we celebrate what's great about the hotel, preserve it, and maybe enhance it even. So the things we decided to do, we're doing very slowly.
The most obvious changes can be seen here in the lobby.
We've created casual seating groups, places to collaborate, hopefully places people will come after work for a drink, or if you're with your colleagues celebrating after a closing dinner. So it's multi-occasion space.
The heavy drapery that used to cover these floor-to-ceiling windows is now gone, letting a lot more light in.
So now you can also appreciate some of the really great architectural aspects of the lobby, which were hidden before. So we think that's a great example of how we can make this more of an extroverted, community-centric hotel.
The Green Room Bar also received a modern makeover, as did the menus at the 4-star Green Room restaurant and at the cafe, which is a more casual place to eat within the hotel.
Our goal is to be one of the great hotels in the U.S., and certainly the bones are here.
Also within the DuPont building, something big is coming, 12,000 square feet big.
Deco is a food hall with 8 kitchens for chefs to open new restaurant concepts. So when customers come in, they'll be able to choose from one of the 8 different kitchens, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, get food from wherever they like, and sit down at all communal tables and get drinks from the bar.
Construction crews will knock down these walls over the next few months, making way for the $3.5 million collaboration between Wilmington developers BPG and Baltimore-based Seawall Development.
Well, one of the reasons why we called it Deco is to reference the Art Deco style that's very common in downtown Wilmington. And so we're going to kind of reinterpret that with a modern flair to have kind of a modern Art Deco style infused through the food hall, but with the individual character of each of these chefs.
DePrinzio says when Deco opens, the corner of 10th and Orange Streets will be transformed.
When the weather's nice, we're going to have 3 large doors which we can open so that to create an indoor-outdoor connection, put chairs and seating out on 10th Street. And I think it'll really help create a great presence in the downtown, as well as open the inside of the food hall out to the exterior for the summer.
And just up Market, something new is brewing, literally. Stitch House is a 160-seat brew pub where they brew and sell all of their own beers. They also have a full menu with lots of sandwiches.
Sandwiches are huge because of lunch down here, but we wanted to be a place that could start to grab some more happy hour and nighttime life down here.
And in hopes of grabbing that late-night crowd, Stitch House is committed to staying open until 1 a.m. every single day.
We're going to have some slow ones, but I think the bigger picture is to reach that point where it's just a normal thing and people just know they can come here.
Chef Dan Sheridan grew up in Wilmington, so he knows how much downtown has changed, particularly in recent years, thanks in large part to BPG. Dave Poland says BPG owns and has revitalized 35 buildings along Market Street, including the Queen Theater, over the past 10 years.
It's all come together in a great way, and we think of the hotel as almost the capstone to Market Street, because of course it is at the top of the street, and the food hall is going to be a great welcoming beacon to bring people up Market Street.
Now's that big tidal wave, and it's kind of like, it's getting done now or never, I think. So it's our hope that it happens, that the downtown district becomes very residential, very pedestrian, and that people come down here that don't even live around here just to check out all the restaurants, not just us. Like, we want it to become a scene down here and just be part of it.
In addition to the retail development, BPG is also behind a lot of the new residential construction as well. Since 2001, BPG has developed close to 1,400 apartments and condos at the riverfront and along Market Street. And while there are obviously a lot of other developers in Wilmington, BPG seems to be making the lion's share of changes here.
They've definitely been very busy. So when can we expect the food hall to open, and what kind of chefs are going to be found there?
Deco's supposed to open late this year, but we don't know which chefs are on board yet. But Peter DiPrinzio with Seawall says that all different styles of food will be represented, but there will be some staples like a breakfast place, a sandwich shop, pizzas, tacos, and the like. Well, they won't have at Deco, though, are chain restaurants.
And I'm already hungry.
Yeah.
So tell us the story a little bit behind the Stitch House and how it got its name.
So Stitch House pays homage to the building's previous occupants. So it used to be a linen and tailor shop, and it was also used previously as a coal and an ice house. Now, Stitch House, which I'm sure you know, only the second downtown brewery in over 60 years, and it is the first microbrewery on market in over 15 years.
I know a lot of people are excited. Thanks so much, Shirley. You can read more about all these changes in downtown Wilmington online at WHYY.org/news.
Coming up on First, encouraging girls to do more with technology has some students in Middletown excited to join a new club. And the Air Mobility Command Museum in Dover has an exhibit that highlights the importance of rail transportation during World War II. All of that is later on First.
March is Women's History Month, a time where we celebrate amazing women in history and those making their mark in the community today. Many of them are wives, moms, aunts, sisters, daughters, mentors, and the list goes on. Here in Delaware, we like to highlight the talent of two women in the arts, Bria Noel and Marie Cousar.
With a few brushstrokes, paint, and a few other supplies, Marie Cousar can bring any blank canvas to life. In fact, art is now a big part of her life, but it wasn't always that way.
Just the thought of it being able to paint, it just seemed so far away. I always said I can't paint a straight line, so I never even tried, you know. But then 8 years ago, I saw an ad in the paper for the YWCA, the Brandywine Y, about an art class.
It was then Marie started to develop a skill she never imagined. Everyone from family to friends started to take notice. Now her work is on display at the gallery of the Christina Cultural Arts Center in Wilmington.
I just can't explain what it means to me. I'm so grateful that they allow me to show my work down there.
Marie says it's also a meaningful gesture as an artist because women in this field weren't always recognized.
Women have struggled. We've always struggled. There weren't a lot of women artists way back. Georgia O'Keeffe came forward, and here we are today. We're still in the field. We're growing.
Bria Noel is among the growing field of women artists, but she shows off her creativity with photography.
I love this photo. It kind of just represents being locked, being trapped from achieving your dreams. Sometimes you can feel stumbled a bit. So sometimes you can get discouraged, but I do have a bit of a smile on my face because I know one day I'll overcome it.
For Bria, photography just happened thanks to a new camera and friends who supported her hobby. Today, you can catch some of her favorite pictures on display also at the CCAC.
I just love to see women in general just flourish. I love to see women, go beyond, reach beyond the stars, achieve great things. There's so much greatness around me constantly, and I always just try to absorb it all.
Honored to be celebrated during Women's History Month, she explains why photography is close to her heart.
Everything about it, just the expression of art through a lens is so amazing and so incredible. So much you can do. You know, people all over the world may not be able to understand each other language-wise, but through a photo, you know, there's that connection that we all have.
And while people may be connected through photography or other forms of art, there's one thing Marie doesn't want people to lose sight of, especially as it relates to her journey.
I'm 74 years old, almost 75, and shows you're never too old to learn something new or try something new. Just don't give up on your dreams, you know?
Marie Cousar's paintings and Bria Noel's photography will remain on display at the Christina Cultural Arts Center until the end of April. Their work is also being featured as part of Wilmington's Art Loop that showcases the work of local artists every month at various businesses. The arts is certainly one way women can achieve success, but there are also efforts to have women move into the field of technology. Delaware education reporter Chris Barish is here with more on that. Hey, Chris.
Hi, Nichelle. Getting more girls into the computer sciences is the mission of a national nonprofit trying to close the gender gap in technology. Students have embraced that goal at a middle school in Middletown, where more than 50 kids have joined the Girls Who Code Club. The tiny toy robots look a little like the ghosts from the old Pac-Man arcade game. But these little devices are called Ozobots, and they're helping an after-school club of middle schoolers near Middletown get an introduction to computer programming.
Some of them, if you do it forwards, it does one thing, but if you read it backwards, it does another thing.
7th grader Yashu Panaganti and her classmates love playing and learning with the Ozobots. They are enthusiastic members of the school's 52-member strong Girls Who Code Club.
Ozobots are actually pretty cool. They roll around and you need to draw like a track with them with multiple colors. The base color is black and then you can add little dots in multiple colors. In different patterns, they recognize different codes and they do what that movement tells them to do.
Girls Who Code, which has programs in all 50 states, aims to expose girls to technology and increase the number of women who pursue such careers. It serves tens of thousands of girls nationwide and a few boys at the Middletown school in grades 6 through 12. Delaware has 11 clubs. The overarching goal is to reduce the gender gap in computer science. Fewer than 1 in 5 college graduates with degrees in computer science or information sciences are women. And only 1 in 4 people working in computer science related fields today are women, down from more than 1 in 3 about 20 years ago.
Things should never be just for boys or just for girls. I feel like if you want to do something, you should do it. So girls getting into coding is a great thing because it basically breaks the barriers of genders.
We realize that it's important for girls to start to realize that this is a career path that they could go into and hopefully meet with great success.
Caitlin Scott, the librarian at Waters, started the club last school year. The kids meet weekly after school for 2 hours. Scott delivers a brief lecture on a tech topic or a woman in the industry. Then the kids split into groups. Some work with the Ozobots, others design websites, some create digital music. A few conduct an exercise where they use stocking feet and a circuit board, alligator clips, and a USB cable attached to a computer to control the keyboard and mouse from a paper on the floor. The mission? To navigate a creature through a maze on their computer screen.
See, I couldn't make it past like level 4.
A handful work on robotics projects, such as a programmable smart car.
It's gonna look like this. Somebody said it looks like Wall-E.
For 7th grader Samantha Sparks, participating in the coding club will lay the groundwork for what she hopes will be a career in robotics or software engineering.
I love playing video games, and I think it would be cool to create one day. I want to make an RPG fantasy kind of game, kind of like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy.
Scott says the girls bring a different mindset to coding and technology assignments.
Some of the girls in our club are very chatty. They like to talk their whole way through. Should we put the screw here? Should we put the screw there? Well, what if I hold this wire and you hold that wire and then you're the soldering? They're more collaborative and chatty through the way, but the car they end up building is just as good and sometimes even better.
The bottom line, though, and perhaps the best gauge of the club's impact, is that many of the members at Waters are now pondering careers in tech.
Photographer or computer science?
An engineer.
Software engineer.
A STEM engineer.
An aerospace engineer.
A forensic scientist.
Software engineer.
Aerospace engineer.
Chemical engineer.
Computer scientist.
Software engineer.
President of the United States of America.
Girls Who Code isn't part of the daily curriculum, but the enthusiasm was contagious inside the library at Alfred G. Waters during this relaxing but engaging after-school program. Seeing the kids enjoy themselves while experimenting, it was evident why so many of these young ladies now envision themselves having a career in tech.
A lawsuit that targets how schools are funded in Delaware to the detriment of poor students is the subject of a lawsuit being brought by the American Civil Liberties Union of Delaware. Chris Barish is back with more. Chris.
Hey, Mark. We sat down with ACLU Legal Director Ryan Tack Cooper. His group represents the plaintiffs in this case. Tack Cooper is our first person this week. Well, Ryan, we've spoken on the phone a few times. Nice to finally meet you.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome first. So the lawsuit says that defects in Delaware's educational funding system illegally deprive poor, disabled, and non-English-speaking children from their right to an adequate education. What are the defects, and how does this violate the state's constitution?
Yeah, so we represent the NAACP and Delawareans for Educational Opportunity. And what our clients point to is the state's own test scores, showing that 2/3 of low-income students are not at grade level for reading. It's worse for math, and it gets worse as time goes on. English language learners, students with disabilities, also not meeting grade levels at even higher percentages. And it violates the Delaware Constitution because it has a requirement that we have efficient, general and efficient schools. And that means that the schools have to be good, they have to be effective.
Now, Governor Carney and other officials say that, the state spends, I think it's like $2.1 billion a year to educate public school students, and I think it's $13,500 a year, well above the national average. What's your contention, that it's distributed unevenly?
Yeah, so it is distributed unevenly. I mean, it's the case that students who need resources, they need reading tutors or counselors, aren't getting them. And I think we have to be careful about comparisons to other state spending. The other states spend a lot of money on pre-K. They spend money on other resources that don't get counted in their number. Delaware includes money that it spends on prison education in that number. So they're not apples to apples comparison. But if we look at actually what's happening on the ground, and you go into schools and you ask teachers and administrators, what do you not have that you need? The answers are things for these students who aren't making it. We need counselors to help them deal with issues they're bringing in from outside. We need reading specialists to help them get up to grade level. We need people who can help them learn English and be able to use that in their other classes. And we've got to bring those resources together if we expect to fulfill the constitutional promise of Delaware's Constitution.
So you point out that higher paid veteran teachers often leave rougher schools to go to higher performing schools, and that further exacerbates the funding disparity. But can you blame teachers for wanting to work in an environment where they don't have to practice classroom management? So many have told me that they've left schools because they're just tired of trying to teach disruptive kids who did not learn how to behave at home. So, how do you deal with this reality?
Yeah, we certainly don't blame them. What we want to do is help them. We think a lot of teachers go into the profession because they want to help exactly the students who the state is failing right now. And the reason that they're not able to do it is they're not given the resources and support that they need. So a teacher that has a problem with classroom management needs a smaller classroom. They might need other professionals that will help with that student who have skills and expertise that the teacher doesn't have. They may need other resources in the school to make that happen. That's exactly the sort of resources that other states provide that Delaware doesn't, that are essential to helping those kids learn and helping those veteran teachers stay in schools and make the difference they went into the profession to make.
One thing I was intrigued by is the contention that the school governance system actually disenfranchises Wilmington's Black and Latino families because they're dissipated over four districts rather than one where they would be in the majority. Talk about how that hurts city children and their access to a good education.
Sure. So basically Wilmington is cut into 4 parts. And it means that although there are a lot of students in the city, they don't constitute the majority of any school district. And school districts make all kinds of decisions. They make decisions about where schools will be built. They make decisions about how much resources will go to different schools. They make decisions about school-wide policies like discipline. All of those decisions affect schools in the city and may affect them differently than schools outside the city. And the basic principle of democracy is that the people who are affected should be making the decisions. And we think if the people in the city were more empowered to control their school districts, they'd probably make better decisions for the kids that are affected by them.
Think we need to go back to a city district?
What we say is we think the number one thing we need is resources for the kids that need them. We need a little bit more flexibility about how that money is spent. I think there are a lot of ways to get there. It's not clear that we have to do that by redrawing the district lines. We can do it by empowering schools within districts. We can do it by giving schools resources that they have some flexibility to spend. We're more interested in the bottom line than we are in exactly how the state gets there.
Now, do you think Kearney's trying to do some of this with this consolidation of Christina's Wilmington schools by sort of putting some extra money into the pot to educate the poor kids?
I think if you look at a lot of the things that the Kearney administration has done in schools, it's the right idea, and the scale is just nowhere near the scale you would need to actually solve these problems. So if you look at $5 million in opportunity grants, that comes a year after $27 million in cuts, and it's part of a budget that is hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's a good idea to put money into the classrooms where kids need it most, but no one's proposing things yet on the scale that we would need to actually comply with the Constitution.
So the lawsuit says that the Neighborhood Schools Act has actually served to resegregate Delaware schools. But in this era of school choice and so many charter schools, why is it an unfair system if parents don't exercise their options?
Right. So what we have is school choice in theory, but not school choice in practice. And the reason it doesn't exist in practice is if you're a parent in the city who wants to take your kid to a school outside the city, you have to get them there. And that requires that you have a car, you have a time in the morning, and the parents who we're talking about tend to be parents who have the least flexible work schedules, who have the least resources to make that happen. And so as a practical matter, it just doesn't happen very often. What we know is that for most parents, the most convenient thing and the thing they can do is take their kid to the school that's near them. And so we need to make those schools better.
Okay, well, as always, we could talk all day. Ryan Tack Hooper is the legal director for the ACLU of Delaware. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
The Kearney administration is due to file its response in Chancery Court next month. It's doubtful that state and county officials will be eager to dismantle a system of funding that has been in place for decades. So this important legal battle could take years to decide.
All right, Chris, thanks so much. And in addition to Chris's reporting on 90.9 WHYY FM, you can also read his work at whyy.org/news and check out Chris's reporting this week on the protest at Padua Academy.
During World War II, America's railroads played a huge part in the war effort. Over 44 million servicemen and women were transported on about 2,500 troop trains a month. The AMC Museum, located on the grounds of Dover Air Force Base, has an exhibit looking at this overlooked piece of war history, and First Experience visited them for a look.
Exhibit is titled Loaded for War. It depicts rail mobilization during World War II. It's not a story a lot of people know. What we try to do here is to show how the Army and the Army Air Force mobilized for war. We have a great volunteer staff here. Well, we wouldn't have been able to do this without them. So we gathered a couple together that are good at model making and also good at train displays. They did pretty much all the models here. Some of them were kits and others were scratch build. And then we had a couple do the train, the actual rail and the trains there. Without them, it wouldn't have been possible to have this happen. The title of the exhibit is very important. It actually comes from a World War II poster, Loaded for War. It was used to notify the American people that, the rail system is vital to the nation's mobilization efforts. Dover was established in 1940, Dover Army Airfield then, and it was definitely an integral part of mobilizing and going to war. It's an aspect that is often ignored or just not known very well. World War II required the largest manpower mobilization that we've ever experienced. Even the Civil War wasn't as large as World War II. They would move people going to training, going to ports to embark overseas, and also tanks, supplies, everything to be transported overseas, whatever was needed and where. Millions of men and women mobilized for that war. Today we have more modern methods, but then the rail was the primary means of mobilizing. I think that what we've done here is a little bit different, and I think we're very proud of it, and hopefully going forward it improves.
The AMC Museum hopes to grow the exhibit every year, and you can see the installation now through the end of March. The museum is open year-round, and admission is free. You can get more information when you visit them on the web at amcmuseum.org.
And next week, as we head into the season of Passover and Easter, we present a First Experience special. We have some memorable stories about the arts and culture of Delaware, and we'll also look in on the people. One story we'll revisit will be the language immersion programs throughout the First State.
Lots of good stuff. That is First for this week. We really appreciate you tuning in to watch. For Chris Barish, Nichelle Polston, and Mark Eichman, I'm Shirley Min. Have a great week.